Hello, we're on.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, Hanna.
Hello, Sophie.
Welcome to Ljósvarpið.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's a pleasure.
For me too. For me, you are like a soul sister. And I just want to tell just a little bit before we go on in the flow to tell how we met. It was just a moment that I never forget. Because, I mean, we had been, I think it's about 10 years ago or so, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it was in 2008 or 9 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. And we had mutual friend that we wanted to, that connected us really. And then we decided to meet and I came to Copenhagen and we sat in this little coffee place. And it was just like, just seeing you.
Yeah.
I mean, such a sunshine. You are such a sunshine. And I felt like I had known you all my life. It was just this kind of feeling. And we talked for 2 hours nonstop, I think.
Yes, I remember it so clearly. You came into the coffee shop and you said, "Oh, there she is." Like a beautiful light around you. Was just, "Oh, where has she been all my life? I know I'm finally seeing her again."
It was a wonderful, wonderful meeting. And since then we've been in touch. I mean, in waves, and but really always so enjoyable to talk to you. It lightens my day. And so I am very, very pleased to introduce you to people. And just wanted to keep it easy. Instead of me telling about you, that I ask you to tell me a lot about you, where you were born, maybe about your youth and how you came to Copenhagen, why you came over, and why you are still in Denmark, and everything. Just if you start there.
Well, I was born in Akureyri in northern Iceland. I was born in this, it's called the town in the woods. And that's because there are some trees in the town. There are not so many trees in Iceland otherwise. And it's a beautiful town surrounded by mountains, like in the end of a fjord. And I was raised by my parents that were old when they had me. My mother was 42 when she had me. So, and I was a part of a group of siblings. So I was like the sixth that came. So, and my parents were out of a generation that still told stories by heart. So I grew up amongst stories, about generations of people, that came before us. And there was especially my mom telling about, the family stories. And then my father, when we went to the valley where he was born, he was always showing me, oh, if you look into this cliff, do you see the troll in it? And I was looking, and when I looked closer, I saw, oh yeah, there is a nose. Oh yes, and can you see the mouth? Oh yeah, I can see that. And the eyes, and all of a sudden, all nature just became fully alive within me as a child. And I think in a way I have brought that with me to my adulthood. Yes. So he told a lot of stories about the elves and the trolls and the spirits of nature and ghosts and stuff like that. And so I grew up with all of these stories and some of the fairy tales from Iceland, like the seal woman. Yes. And in a way that made me very connected with nature, and I understood very deeply when I was a child that we have to respect nature, and we have to honor nature, and we have to treat it as a part of ourselves, like an extended arm, as we would do that. So we are just a piece of nature ourselves. And well, then I went to school.
Yes.
When you go to school, all of a sudden you can put, water into a formula, H2O. And all of a sudden, all the water spirits kind of, just faded away. And, water just became something very different, something very left brainy. And I lost a bit connection to these elements of nature, to these small creatures, or small people of nature, or even big people of nature, the trolls. So, and it didn't become much better when I started, in the university. I studied environmental engineering. So I still had this nature connection in a way by choosing that it was the environment that I wanted to protect. However, it was not like a journey in paradise. It was much more like a journey in hell, where I was trying to find my way, trying to find that kind of spirit or the spark that I had when I was a child. And I had, in a way, it felt as if I had lost it forever. And maybe I didn't even know that what I was looking for, but at least I didn't really find it within the engineering, environmental engineering. However,
did you study the environmental engineering in Iceland?
Or no. I took 1 year in Iceland, and then I went off to Denmark because we didn't have a broad enough study, around that in Iceland. So it was more here in Denmark. You could go really deeply into water pollution, or waste deposit, or how to treat wastes, and recycle and stuff like that. And you could go into soil pollution, how to deal with that, all these issues, sewage, water, and all that. So so that's why I came here. And I did finish my studies, and I also did get a job that was like the dream job that I could get, as an environmental engineer. Loved my colleagues. It was just a beautiful department that I was working in. And well, I mean, I could complain about the assignments. This was what I was supposed to do. But in a way, I felt that I was dying inside. I felt so much that, it was like end of pipe, what I was doing. I really wanted to create waste-free supermarkets. To solve the problems. But I was actually designing waste disposal sites. So that was my job. And I felt, I don't want to be creating that. I would rather do something else, figuring out how we can make it, instead of this being from cradle to grave, how can it be cradle to cradle? And this concept wasn't really, it wasn't really there at that time. But this is how I thought, and I didn't, dare telling anyone, because I thought people would probably think that I was crazy, because this was not how things, were at that time. So what happened after I was in this big consultancy company, or while I was there, was that I was taking singing lessons. It was rhythmic singing, not opera singing, as I've been doing, the classical singing. And it was a wonderful teacher, Stine Michelle. She makes folk music here in Denmark. And at the time that I was working in the consultancy company, Covey, I divorced, and I desperately needed a new flat or a room to rent, for myself. So I was in total desperation, and it was like 2 hours before my class with Stine that I called her and said, I'll have to cancel, the singing lesson tonight because I'm getting divorced and I have no place to stay. And she was just, come on, Hanna, why didn't you call me before that? 2 hours before, it's a little bit too late. And I really understand that she was a bit annoyed. It was not a very good style. And she said, Hanna, if I have found a place to stay for you, will you come? Sure, I said, of course. So I went and did my singing lesson with her, and it was beautiful. And then in the end of the lesson, she had written a name and a phone number, and it stood Britta Hauken, the name, and then the number. And I got that piece of paper, and I was happy that maybe, she had found something for me. So I went home and I called, the lady, and then we met. And then I entered this, it was on the 4th floor, up in a beautiful, it's an area of Copenhagen that is really beautiful. The houses are beautiful. There are lots of parks, and it's and there's also really interesting people living there. A lot of artists and people that come from different backgrounds. And then I went into this, on the 4th story of this building, and then she opened the door, and when I took the first step into this new flat, or this flat, it was as if everything just, it was like coming into a different era, magical era, where everything was alive. To begin with, I looked at the woman, and she had this green eyes that I felt could, just see completely through me. It was both fascinating, and it was really like scary. And like this, these noses, tip of a nose that was a little witch-like, not like this big nose, no, but this, the tip of the nose was just like, oh gosh. And then, the words that came out of her mouth, they were just pure fairy tales and magic. And she was tall, she was royal, and she, this was no woman to fool around with,
Don't fool around with the witches.
No, exactly. And at the same time, she was heartwarming, So she was like everything at once. And I was like, wow. And then her flat was filled with arts, art on the walls. It was like very Nordic kind of a space with these wooden cupboards that were painted, and you had this skin all over, everywhere, like wooden chairs with skin, and and a sofa with a lot of, different kinds of blankets with all kinds of, weavery. I was just really, I was so fascinated. I was just looking around, and the books on the shelves and the ceramics and all that, stuff that she had. And I felt so home with her. And luckily, she accepted me. So I was living in her flat. I was renting a room.
Just a room. Okay, in her flat. Yeah.
However, she had a house in Western Jutland. So most of the time she wasn't even there. So I had the whole flat for myself when she wasn't there. That was nice. But I must admit, it was much nicer when she was there. But then we were sitting in her kitchen and we were enjoying a cup of Chinese green tea that she had from her, Chinese tea pusher, and she was just, painting pictures in my heart and in my head, and it didn't matter if it were, if it was stories from her own life or, fairy tales or even myths. Everything just came so vividly alive in her presence. And all of a sudden it struck me, oh my God, this is what I experienced when I was out in the countryside with my parents. They were also telling stories that were really vividly alive in me as a child. And I had this, I came into, in touch with such a longing for being able to talk and, to tell stories so vividly, like she did.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was just an engineer. I was living, north of my, from my neck. So I thought, no, I mean, I'm living like in my left brain, and everything she does is in the right brain. So, this is nothing for me. And I was this kind of person. I couldn't say my name in front of, people, more than the two people in a room without, having my heart racing and, having butterflies in my stomach and being completely red and, in my face and, being awkward. That was how I felt. So I thought, this is probably nothing for me. However, at that time, I was really stressed. I was.
How old were you at that time?
I was 27, 8, around,
Okay.
8. Yeah. So, so at that time, I had, I was divorced. I was kind of healing myself after my divorce, and at some point during the summer vacation, Britta came to the flat, and she saw that I wasn't really thriving. So she asked me. So she was really worried about me, and she said, "Hanna, I'm really worried that you are having a burnout. So do you have some vacation left?" Yeah, I said, I have 2 weeks. Okay, she said, so how about you come with me to Greece? I said, to Greece? I'd love that. Well, I have a course in ritual dancing. Ritual dancing? I said, okay, what is that? And she said, some things you cannot explain. You have to experience for yourself. So then she said she had the selling point for me. So she said, Hanna, if you don't like the course, you can just lay, on the beach, and there are like 35 degrees and the sun is always shining. And then there's a restaurant, where you can get cold water and, some nice lunch if you like, so you don't even have to dance with us if you don't like it.
Wow, what a friend.
Yeah, isn't she? She is amazing. She's really,
and what destiny changer that happens at this point.
She completely changed the course of my life.
Mm-hmm. Or not destiny changer, that's not the right, exactly. The course of your life, just you suddenly
completely
look into another direction. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. So I took off. I got the vacation and off I went with, I think it was around 30 women, most of them, around, in the late 40s, in their 50s. I was like, fun. And there was
the
one
kid?
man. Yeah, I was the kid. And then one man.
Okay.
And then I remember we were sitting on the veranda, by the beach. This was where we were living. And then the sun was going down in the Aegean Ocean. And then she started to tell the story that we were supposed to dance, that was ritual dancing. And she said, she told the story of the Greek myth of Demeter and Cora. The daughter who got lost into the underworld, and the goddess of fertility and corn that started to look out for her daughter. So everything just, so the corn was like withering away, everything got unfertile. So even, the high god Zeus, he had to do something about it. So so there was all this, story about going into the underworld and coming up again with new wisdom. And I felt so much that this story was just about my life. And I could see, oh my God, I'm just like Cora, I'm just stuck in the underworld. So I was just, so what are the next steps in the myth? And I could see, okay, the next steps in the myth are just like, the steps that, Cora has to take. And that Demeter has to take to get her daughter back. So I was looking very closely into the myth in that way. And then the next day we were dancing. And there I figured out, no, I'm not going to, I'm not going to stay on the beach and try to, get some color that I can't because I'm Icelandic and I have a very light skin. So, I want it to be that body color that I have.
Yeah.
So I ended up, dancing in this beautiful Greek museum with all these women.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a life-changing experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to ask Britta, do you have an education? Yeah, I do. And it was called Myth, Dance, Ritual. And I said, is there a spot that is left, for me? No, she said. Oh, are you sure? Like, well, I can call, the woman in charge of the education and see what we can do. And so she did, and there was a left spot for me. So I started, and I thought, well, maybe I can just, maybe I can do it like I did it in the engineering study. I can work a lot with the dance, like I always worked with all the projects. And then I don't have to deliver a speech. I don't have to tell the stories. I can just do the dance. So I tried to sneak around, even though there was something in me that, wanted to, longed for having my own voice and being free on own voice and, being able to tell stories. There was also this part of me that was just, no, I can't, I can't do it. And
you needed to go deeper into the underworld.
I needed to do that, definitely. So I had to dig deeper. And in Britta, there was no way around it. There was just, no, you have to tell so many stories during the education.
Of course.
No dear mother there. But that was really good for me. So I remember also, because Britta could really see that, oh gosh, I really have to help her. So I remember once when we were in her apartment, she said, Hanna, what was your favorite story when you were a child, like a fairy tale? And I said, well, it was Snow White. And she said, yeah, you look a bit like her, she said. And then said, oftentimes the fairy tales that you get connected to as a child, they often tell you something about your life theme. And
that's interesting.
How right she was, Snow White is really the theme of my life, So we worked. She helped me, tell the story. And I was like, in every second sentence, I was like, oh, no, I can't do this. And she said, yeah. And in the end, I think she got a bit tired of me. And to be honest, I can really understand that. So she said, Hanna, you know what? You are not important at all. Oh, I said. And then she said, no, it's the fairy tale that is important. So remember, this fairy tale has been told for millennia. See, I got something to think about here, because seeing it from that perspective, I could let go of my own ego, and how people would look at me, and if they would like me or not like me, and putting myself into center. And I could put the story into the center instead.
Yes,
there was so much freedom in it.
Yes, this is also now I'm just chipping in, but in the soul flow, when you sing, that's really what you're saying, is that you connect to your higher wisdom, to your soul, and allow the channeling going through you.
Exactly.
And you step outside, your ego goes outside, and and you allow it to flow.
Exactly. So all the agendas that you may have about how people should perceive it or perceive you, or anything, it just goes out of the way. Yes. And that way it was much easier also to work with the creating the pictures, instead of trying to explain something, then you were actually just painting the picture of the fairy tale or of the story that we were telling.
You probably also have a lot of a strong visual sense, isn't that?
Yeah, well,
that's you go into the visual and express it, or
yeah, that's true. However, I've had to practice that one. I'm much more auditive and kinesthetic, so that's actually a sense that I've really had to work with.
Okay.
So it's nothing that was quite that natural, even though I'm actually raised with parents that were telling so many stories. So
it's interesting how we are screwed together. And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And, interesting. Yeah. And then what? I wanted to ask you about the engineering and all of that, how that fits into this. How did you connect it at this point?
At this
your work,
there was quite a disconnection, so to speak, because I could really feel that often while I was sitting in front of the computer and was supposed to be working, and I was working, there were stories that were trying to sneak into my mind and my heart, and I had to, oh no, go away, I'm working right now, I have to do something, this is what I get my salary for. So in the end, I realized that while I was, in Britta's storytelling and ritual dancing education, my energy level just went straight up. It was just like I was getting my vitamins where I had been depleted before. And then I went back to my old environment in Covey and, in the engineering. And then after 1 or 2 days, I was completely depleted again. At the same time, I started to work with my nightly dreams, because that's like our private fairy tales or myths, so to speak. I started to tap in the messages that I was getting. One of the messages was that I was living in a complete desert, and in this desert there were just high houses, multi-story buildings, and everything was just, there was nothing ripe, or there was nothing, growing really fruitful in it.
Just concrete.
Just concrete, exactly. And then I had another very strong dream that I was going to work, I was driving a car, and all of a sudden there was a new road coming, and it was taking me like 180 degrees into another direction. And at the end of that road there was a theater with a scene, a little storytelling scene. So my car just drove me to this new direction. It was as if I had no choice. There were different dreams like that, and there was also this dream that I was on the top of a hill, or top of a cliff, and then I went to a free fall, and I knew that there was a scene, and I would be carried. I would be, somebody would just, hold me on my way. So
you were always so connected to your dreams. That's amazing that you had another world.
Actually. Yeah, exactly. But I became conscious of it through my connection with Britta.
Okay.
It was actually in Greece. We ended up sharing a room. There was some failure in the booking. She was supposed to have, a single room, and me too. But however, there were too few single, bedrooms. So she asked me if we could, share a room, and I said, yeah, of course. And then she asked me if I was writing down my dreams, nightly dreams. No, And she said, go to the market tomorrow, buy a pen and buy a little book. And so I did. So the first dream that I dreamt that night was that there was a hand coming up from the sky, and it had a jewel in it, and it put it on my night table. And then I woke up and remember, oh yeah, I have to write down this dream. And I took the pen and the book, and I was thinking, oh gosh, this must be my jewel. And I wrote down the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And in this period of time, I was so caught in my head and in my ideals of how I should be and who I should be. Mm-hmm. So the only place where I couldn't manipulate with my mind, mm-hmm. that was through my dreams. They were so clear, and everything, like the guidance I got through my dreams, was so clear that there was no way I could, go into another direction than that direction I was guided into.
That's a beautiful description, actually, that in your wake situation, position as Hanna in your work, you were still maybe more connected to your head than to your heart, because it took you some years to take a big step, didn't it? Many things happened in between.
Yeah, it did. A lot happened in between, and I was caught in an inner conflict. It was like Ragnarok, within me, between my head and my heart. It's complete like destruction. I was just like, oh, should I do this? But I want to do this. Yeah, but you can't because of, oh, it's tiring. No wonder I was tired all the time.
Yes. But you also had two beautiful gems in the meantime.
Yeah.
Your children.
Well, that was afterwards.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, that was first actually.
That's right.
Yeah, it was actually 10 years later, almost 10 years later, 8 years later.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I had this, really steep individuation, so to speak, during this period of time, doing dancing, connecting with the wisdom of the myths and the fairy tales, and deepening into taking all kinds of educations, also within coaching and leadership, and meeting a lot of new people, that came into my life that were much more connected with the spiritual environment than all the left-brain people that I know that are also beautiful people, that I love very much. So, but it was like a whole new world that was opening to me that was still quite known.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yes. You were remembering.
Yes, I was remembering. So it was like the Norns, the witches of creation. I was like finding the threads from the, from some pests,
Yes.
Or
yes.
Threads.
That's right, because when we met, you didn't have any children.
No, exactly.
Yes, and then you were working with the company.
And I've been working because it's as if there's a part of me that is connected with the corporate world still, because I do use storytelling when I go into companies within strategy processes and within coaching, and I've sometimes thought, how come that why am I not only deepening into the storytelling and the story dancing? But there's also part of me that is drawn to this because I feel as if I'm building bridges.
Exactly, I was going to say.
And through the storytelling, I can open a space through creating these pictures, that makes them emotionally connected to what they're doing.
Yes.
And it changes a lot, in our perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in our visions and in our values. Yeah. So in that sense, I haven't been willing to let go of it. And I don't think.
And maybe you shouldn't.
No.
Maybe you shouldn't.
Exactly. So I feel that's very much part of my path as well.
Yeah.
So I have like these two legs, the left leg and the right leg, the feminine and the masculine. And I need both to be balanced.
Yes. But also this some of us, we go into a special profession, like me, into the opera world, in the classical music, and we come in like let's say a fresh wind, or from a completely different world, let's say, into this very, very structured, some strict boom, linear thinking, like you say, the left brain world. Exactly. And then you bring this aspect into it, and in some cases you're not accepted at all. You are looked at as an alien. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
But then now I think the time is so right, exactly, and the past few years back, that we're bringing another element into these stuck professions. I feel
that's so true, and it's really funny because I've often been hired by engineering companies to come in and make, either a storytelling workshop with a strategy, or a dancing workshop where they're working with a personality types. So that's a completely different way to work with personality types. And it's funny, and they laugh, and they're like, oh gosh, it's a little bit, transboundary, and but it's just, this magical sentence that I say, well, I'm an environmental engineer of education, and I was working with the sexy field design of waste disposal sites. Then most of them start to laugh and just, oh gosh. And then I talk a little bit about my journey, a little bit more corporate than I do here. and I make fun of myself. And then I'm kind of accepted. Okay, if she's engineer, if she gets through the engineering education, she can't be that, crazy. Although I am. Just wait and see what I'm going to do with you. But
that's beautiful.
Fun.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And Hanna, what I think is you're such a great role model also of following your heart and stepping out of a world. Of course, now you're bridging into it, but you know what I mean, out of the security.
Yeah, exactly. Especially financial security.
Exactly. Because most people are very, very stuck to the financial security. And do not follow their dreams, and do not and then they are really, really closing off their a big part of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, following your heart is not without a cost. I mean, it's not without sacrifices. But however, I think that those sacrifices I have given, are much less than if I had stayed in the corporate world, completely. Because I would probably have sacrificed one of the most important part of myself, and that's both my integrity and my health.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I would not have looked, the same in any way, if I had continued. So it's something that I've also sacrificed willingly for, for also having all these beautiful meetings, with people that have really touched my heart. Through my story dancing courses, where we are dancing the Nordic Goddess myths that I have been, retelling, and also through my storytelling education, where I teach people to let go of, what do you call it? Actually, do you call it prestation or prestation?
Your performance.
Performance, yeah, exactly.
Probably.
And instead, just going into the space of your essence, and talking from there, and telling your stories from that space.
Yes,
You wanted to. But the story is important.
Exactly. I wanted to tip on the making sacrifices.
Yeah.
for me, I wouldn't call it a sacrifice somehow. I wouldn't use that word, but of course it's different how we use words and look at words.
Offering, maybe.
It's letting go of something more to and moving into your authenticity.
Yeah.
And when you move into your authenticity, you are so much more rewarded that what you think are sacrifices are in really no sacrifices at all.
No, exactly. I know that. Yeah. I know what you mean.
But it's of course it is a process that can be difficult, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because you go through all kinds of emotions and let's say if it's a financial loss, it's not easy, but
no,
you are a much happier person.
Yes, and you kind of figure out also what is important. So is all this stuff, the material stuff, is it that important? Well, you have to rent and pay for your food and stuff like that. But I find that having an everyday life that I love, doing stuff that I love, that I'm passionate about, has been worth it all.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then
to have a life that you don't need to take a vacation from.
No, exactly. I don't have to wait for become my pension as when I'm old. So that's a good thing.
Yes, we're gonna sing together. But tell me more about what you're doing now with your storytelling, what you're teaching people, because I know that you are building your education and what you do with the courses a lot on the Nordic myths.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm writing a book called Nordic Goddess Power. It would probably be called in English. And I have, during the time that I've, emerged, deeply into the Nordic mythology, I've been missing the myths of the goddesses. Because the Nordic goddesses are really powerful, and there are really powerful archetypes within the pantheon of Nordic goddesses. And I hadn't really come across, authors that have been retelling the stories, from the goddesses' perspective. It's mostly been, very male biased. And very much based on the aces. There were,
Ásar,
Ásar, Æsir. They were like the war gods. What about the giants, Jötnar, and or the Vanir? They were like, representatives of the old ways, fornir. The old ways where the Nordic countries most likely were animistic, shamanistic.
Yes.
So I've been trying to, dig a bit deeper. So the stories are, like they represent all the holes that, in the cheese, and the cheese, so to speak. So, for instance, the myth of Idun. It's called Idun's apples, the apples of Idun. Our story is mainly about the, Loke and Thor and Höna that are going to, the land of the Jötun, and they are, and it's about how they make a deal with one of the Jötun to deliver Idun to Jötunheim. So she gets like. So he the Jötun Thjassi, he catches her and grabs her and takes her to his home. And this is all you get told about, her, about what happens. She's just like an object that gets taken, away. And I always thought, what? How come that no one is talking about how she feels about it? And, what is this about? And even in Jötunheim, where Thjassi, the one that abducts her, he has a daughter, Skadi. So they must have met there. So how is their relationship? So nobody has really written about that. And I got so disappointed reading all these, retellings, and I didn't find it anywhere. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Then I have to, write that story. So this has been like that with many of the stories. And then in my book, I take also the perspective, like Solhjulet, which is the wheel of the sun, or the medicine wheel of the Nordic tradition. I find the 8 portals, which are representing 8 out of the 9 cosmic worlds in the Nordic mythology. So the 8 cosmic worlds are both places where there are some, creatures living, but I see it also as certain, seasons within the year. And then we have the 9th, which is Midgård, which is the one, like the middle.
Midgarður.
Yeah, which is like the one in the middle, and this is where the people are living, of flesh and blood. So they can, kind of with their own minds and their thinking, they can, kind of travel through all of these worlds. We can think about winter even though it's spring, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So we can, through our imagination, travel all these worlds. So this is what kind of connects it all. So I have tried to find some myths that can fit into these different seasons. And so trying to get like this natural flow of, 9 of the myths of the Nordic mythology from the perspective of the goddesses.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I get all kinds of downloading while you're talking. One of them was because they say that the Vikings came first to Iceland. And I somehow think that that's not true, that there were other beings there before the Vikings came, and they have found a lot of places that point to rituals and other kinds of villages and so on.
There's been, I've heard something about that. There may have been, some Celtic people coming before.
Yes.
I tried to dig into it, but I didn't find that much when I was trying to. But I as far as I recall, and you can't name me on it. I've heard there was an exhibition in a museum in Iceland at some point.
Yes, it is in. I went to. Where is it?
Exactly. In southern Iceland, that's true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there they have these pictures of what they think was there before. And when you're talking about the way they lived, you call vanir, and this is also what I see, because this feels so natural somehow. For the new earth energies that we are stepping into, we are really going back to pick up the natural ways of living. Because we've been stripped, let's say, the connection has been cut.
Exactly. It has been this duality of, not all the time, but with patriarchy especially. And now we're getting back to this one worldview, this like the dance of the male and the female, or the masculine and feminine energies, and also like that there's not this duality, maybe God is within us, or God, like and also that there's no I mean, like the devil was a Christian finding, I mean, there was no devil in the heathendom, in fornur siður, in the old ways. So everything was interconnected.
Yes.
So everything had meaning, you know.
Yes.
You couldn't just, you know, you couldn't just work, you know, with forces that you didn't really understand in that sense. You know, like we do a lot of things now, you know, like with gene technology and the way we, you know, emit CO2 into the atmosphere, and you know, the way we treat animals and the nature, you know, with our just with the way, you know, with the food production and all that. Yeah. So there's a lot of loss in biodiversity, and this is like, this should be a wake-up call for all of us, that we need to do things different.
Yes, absolutely.
So we need to, you know, find within ourselves that part that is more altruistic than egoistic. So in our decision to think the next 7 generations, and I know it can be difficult, you know, but yeah.
The actions week. Can you repeat the last thing you said?
Yes.
The 7th generation.
We have to consider that in all our decisions, we need to think about how it affects the coming generations, 7 generations.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like in the Indian tradition, yeah.
Yes, and I also think it is what I feel sooner than maybe we can imagine, that we are stepping into or back where nobody owns the land.
Yeah, and you know,
where we can live wherever we want to.
Yeah,
and just honor and respect nature and each other and the animals, of course. And I see we go away from using money.
And
go into the giving
that way.
and the receiving.
Yeah, exactly. In the old ways, there have been some PhDs studying this, especially in Sweden. We know that the word område, which is surroundings, it has the meaning to, in a sense, to take care of the land and the inhabitants of this land. And there are certain things pointing into a direction that before patriarchy and the belief of the Aesir in the Nordic countries, that there has been this culture of, you know, no real ownership, so that people, they collectively, you know, they shared the country and they shared their things. So it's also a different way of that has probably been a very different way of living in that sense.
Yes. And also that every profession will be acknowledged, and everything is in equal value, no matter what you do. We bring different gifts and geniuses into this world, and it's all important.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way we value things today is pretty unbalanced, so to speak, to say the least. And if you should look at the typical, you know, women's work, it's not really valued that much, you know. And a lot of, you know, women are actually, you know, all around the world, you know, doing unpaid, you know, job. And you know, if it would be like Demeter, going back to the Greek myth, if it would be like Demeter and just say, no, hell no, we're not doing all of that. If you know, if you don't get valued for it, everything is with her way. You know, we would just be like, you know, living in a desert, you know, internally. Then all these white collar men wouldn't be able to go to work because nobody could, you know, take care of their children, you know, cook their dinner, you know, iron their, you know, clothes, you know, clothes and all that. So
Yes.
Speaking of that, this is not valuable.
Yes, but I also say one of the most difficult, or let's say precious works is being a parent, for example.
Exactly.
And it's so underestimated and not valued in the society. And
Exactly.
yeah,
It's
and,
so true.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's how we raise our children, and also I say how we raise our sons is very, very important.
It's so important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What kind of view they have on women. It's yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hanna, where can people find you?
They can find me on my homepage, and
Mhm.
also I have the story dancing, and then my name, Hanna Snorradóttir, on Facebook,
Mhm.
Facebook group.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know if you could put a link or something where people can just, look at it, where they can find me or something. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I will put it underneath the video.
Yeah.
Yes, or above. And another question just popped into my head. If you, of course, you can take from any experience that you have had in life, like me taking a lot of treasures from being in the classical opera world. I take a lot with me, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you also take a lot with you
Oh,
through the engineering, the
totally.
environmental, yes, into what you do now. But if you look at what they're doing in the environmental focus,
Yeah.
and about the green energy, is there anything that you would like to point out what they can improve or do better? Just would be interesting to hear your
Do
view
you
on
think
it.
like on a global level or more on?
Yes, yeah, both.
Well, basically, to fade out the fossil fuel and, to think also, fade out fossil fuel, that we are aware also, everybody, to reduce also the amount of energy we use.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also still a very important thing.
Yeah.
And see, that, the energy resources that we're using are renewable.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be like, like on a global level. And I think we don't come around, this, that there will be some technologies, taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because we've just too much, and
Or new technology that will come our way, because
yeah,
I see something, maybe it's crazy, but I see that we will one day have free energy and very, very sufficient technology that will provide everyone with free energy.
yeah, most likely. I think also,
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of things haven't been, developed yet. Exactly.
Yeah, or discovered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes,
exactly.
yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you would like to add that we didn't get to?
Maybe I would like to finish with a small story that that I've just told actually on my storytelling education. That is
Mhm.
also really important about, maybe one of the most important aspects, in storytelling and creativity. In Greenland, they have this concept of kvartsiluni. It is this word that speaks of the power of creation. When you see it as like a bubble of air coming from the bottom of the ocean, traveling through the mess of the ocean, and then it pops, on the surface, and then just the power of creation is out there.
Yeah.
This is, in the autumn, in Greenland, they had this festival of the soul of the whale. And everybody met, you know, maybe in a big igloo, who knows? Sitting there in the dark, and they were just about to make new songs and stories for, you know, for their spirits, for their fylgjur, so that they would guide them, you know, in life. So it was kind of an honoring of their guides, you know, of their fylgjur, their spirits. And there was complete stillness, kvartsilumi, where they were waiting for these bubbles of air to travel from the bottom of the ocean all the way to pop up on the surface of the water. All of a sudden, everyone in synchronicity made a tone, different tones, but they were in synchronicity. It was harmonic. Somebody began to play the drum, and then all of a sudden, the stories, the words began to come up in a song. So this is how everything is created in the darkness.
Yes.
In Kvatsilumi.
Wow.
This magical stillness.
Beautiful, beautiful. I actually see it so vividly when you describe it. I say, oh, that's a great idea. Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a pleasure to be in your presence, Sola.
Yes.
Always.
Same here. Same here. And it is kind of interesting that we are speaking in English, both being Icelandic, but we decided that more people could get joy from listening when we have a vast, how to say that, network that could then enjoy listening. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here in Ljósvarpið with me, Hanna. Hanna mín.
So mean.
And we will meet again. We'll do this again. Yeah. There's a lot to tell. Yes.
Could make one in Icelandic at some point.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
25 years of being here in Denmark. I have to see how my Icelandic is doing.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. All right. Then we say goodbye for now. Yeah. And I wish you all the best. And I will make sure that people know where to find you and take courses with you. I know they will get a lot of joy.
Thank you, dear Sola, likewise.
Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Bless, bless.
Bless, bless.